All right, good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our February 15, 2021 CRA meeting, and we're going to call this meeting to order at this time. We'll have our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Rawls. And do we have Pastor Mulberry online with us today? If not, Mr. Jones, if you could lead us in the invocation. Commissioner Jones, we'll go ahead and stand at this time.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the events that you have in it for the good and for the lessons. Lord, thank you for letting us come here and be on one accord so we can make the decision that's best for the city of Palatka. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Rawls,
Present.
Commissioner Bourne,
Present.
Mrs. Kemp, Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill. Commissioner Campbell.
Present.
Commissioner Campbell, can you hear us?
I'm present.
Thank you. That concludes roll call.
Moving forward at this time is the swearing in of Commissioner Jeff Rawls as BOCC appointee to the CRA. We don't need to see his face. Step out of the way. That's good.
Commissioner Rawls, would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Jeff Rawls,
I, Jeff Rawls,
a Community Redevelopment Agency Board appointee
a Community Redevelopment Agency Board appointee
of the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners,
of the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
and of the charter and ordinances of the city of Palatka,
and of the charter and ordinances of the city of Palatka,
that I am duly qualified to hold office
that I'm duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform
and I will well and faithfully perform
the duties of board member of the Community Redevelopment Agency,
the duties of a board member of the CRA,
for which I am now about to enter.
for which I'm now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
It was invalid. He didn't follow all the words. Congratulations, you're with us for a little bit longer. We won't do the amended roll call. We're just going to note that Commissioner Rawls has been reappointed. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our December 14th meeting? I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So move to approve the minutes from the December 14th meeting.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Boer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to public comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. If you are here for public comment, please fill out a yellow speaker's card right above Chief Shaw's head. Everyone but Mr. Russo can speak. You can also dial 386-329-0100 extension 0 so that you can be heard as you come to the podium. Mr. Russo, you know the routine. Give your name and address and any affiliation associated with your comments. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Anyone here for public comment? Welcome public comment at this time. First up, Mr. Vito Russo.
I'm up here just to make a very brief comment. This is
Can you match that? Can you, your microphone? Is the blue light on?
No, the bigger blue light,
Okay, thank you.
much bigger. Here, I'll just take this.
Go ahead.
Right now. Anyway, I just want to thank the CRA board for taking up the case of the Will Heights at 418 River. Unfortunately, there's a huge oak tree next to the house, and the storm back in September of 2019. It didn't look like it was a bad limb, but it sheared off, and it was a big limb, and it sheared off the front of this house. And we have requested emergency funds to help the Will Heights address that and to secure the house. So appreciate the board getting around to taking up the issue and potentially funding the Will Heights a little bit. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. I'm going to take a point of privilege at this time for SBDC. Ms. Lynch is unable to be with us today for unforeseen circumstances, but at this time, I'm going to go ahead and call SBDC up. There's a special announcement, a very sad one, but nonetheless, we will have an announcement today. And I think you've got someone who you want to accompany you at this
Yes.
time.
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for that introduction. And Cheryl Lynch had every intention of being here tonight and was in an automobile accident on the way. And she's fine, a little shook up, but we're happy to be here. If you have any questions on the report you received, I'm happy to field those. They were for the first quarter of the fiscal year, so October 1 through December 31 of 2020. What I do want to point out to you is that our annual survey, which goes out to all of our clients, has been sent out. The third round of it went out on the 9th of February. So we should have the results of that by the first week in March. And that's where we collect a lot of the impact from our clients on jobs created and retained, as well as capital access jobs, business starts, et cetera. So we should have that in the next quarterly report for you, which I think will be very good. Unfortunately, a lot more capital was accessed due to the situation we were in with COVID. So Cheryl was able to help a lot of businesses with PPP loans and with the second round of PPP loans, with idle loans, which have been extended through the end of this year, as well as bridge loans and idle advances. So for not good reasons that people needed the loans, but thankfully we were able to help them access some of that capital. Also, I did want to mention there are no training events mentioned on the report, but that's because there were no live events held in Palatka, but we do have dozens of pre-recorded webinars available at no charge to small businesses on a variety of topics, recovery and pivoting during the and after the pandemic, as well as a number of other topics. So those are available at no charge, as well as our startup workshop. And then a few success stories. So does anybody have any questions I've tried to answer?
Any questions from the agency?
I got a comment.
Go ahead.
Cheryl did this presentation at our last BOCC meeting, and I believe I'm not mistaken by saying she said there was over $700,000 in small business loans that were generated, not including EIDL and PPP and bridge loans. That these are actually businesses that were looking to improve or change their buildings or whatever they need the capital for. But and then you see the success stories that we've got in the update. So money well spent, obviously, is my point.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jones, I'm sorry we didn't get to spend more time together. Obviously, you're new, and I did a lot of work with your predecessor over the years, but welcome to the commission. And the reason we won't get to spend too much time together is because this will be my last meeting. I will be retiring after more than 39 years with the SBDC on the 26th of February. So I'm excited about it. I mean, I will miss you guys too. And I definitely told Cheryl, I do want to go to Palatka one more time before I retire and say farewell. But I'm very excited to introduce my replacement. It's nice that you can have your replacement on board and feel good about leaving after this long in the position. So I do want to introduce Houston Pullen. Houston has worked with SBDCs and procurement technical assistance centers in the past,
Okay.
and also has a career with the U.S. Department of Energy in their minority business program, as well as with the FBI in a rural development area, community development. So I think will be a great asset and a good partner for you in the SBDC. Houston, did you want to say a few words?
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, thank you very much for having us today. And I just wanted to say I'm happy to be here and look forward to working with you for many years to come. So thank you so much for continuing to sponsor and support the SBDC program.
And we look forward to working with you. And I can tell you, Ms. Donaldson has done a great job, I think, in many ways of bridging gaps and really just making the relationship between the city and the county become just that much stronger. The work that she's done along with Cheryl Lynch, I think has been a wonderful 1-2 punch. And Kevin during the time in which he had band practice. But I just think that overall what we've got is just, I think a strong nucleus. It sounds like you're bringing a skill set that's going to be much needed in this community. And so with the wonderful work that Cheryl's been doing, we're excited.
Yeah, and
So-
you have my commitment that we will continue that strong and great partnership and only expand and grow. So I look forward to it.
So we hate to see you leave. We want to give you kudos and just congratulations for your retirement, 39 wonderful years.
Thank you so much for your support and over all these years and making small business assistance a reality in Palatka. Really important, and we do appreciate so much your support.
Definitely. Any other comments from the commission, Commissioner Board?
Yes, I'd just like to thank Ms. Donaldson for the time that she has in the SBDC, as well as Cheryl, and now we have Houston. But it was sad to see you leave, but you have made an impact on our Putnam County and city of Palatka as a whole. So we thank you for all you have done, and we look to see you here. We want to see you transition out real smooth. We don't want you to just pull away from us because we're kind of hooked on you right now.
No, I know of a lot of festivals and things I'd like to attend in Palatka going forward. So.
All right, so we want a smooth transition.
Mr. Russo's going to tell you to come to Porch Fest. So
Good.
If I could say one thing.
you got anything, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, Janice, it was a privilege to serve with you on the advisory council for your advisory committee, and working with the SBDC as a whole. Just it really has been a lot of fun. I as a business owner, will continue to utilize the resources when necessary. But I also am a huge champion for the SBDC, what they've done personally for my business and my wife's business in the past. When we started her business, Cheryl was real quick to come in. When I pitched it to her, she said, "You guys need access to capital." And we gave her the business plan, and within 2 weeks, they were funded. So that would have happened without the SBDC and the horsepower that you guys wield. So great job, and look forward to working with you in the future on some other endeavor.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, going to item number 1. We've got an update on the CRA plan revision and distribution of draft goals and action strategies to review. And there's a request for a special call meeting for March 8th of 2021 at 6 p.m.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. So staff has included a draft of the goals and action strategy component of the CRA plan update for review. And we would suggest the special called meeting on March 8th at 6 p.m. for comments and direction to facilitate staying on schedule.
You've heard the recommendation from staff. Are there any questions at this point? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we set a meeting for 5 p.m. on March the 8th, 6th,
Right.
Second.
6 p.m.
Yeah. It just says 6, right?
Yes, sir. 6 p.m.
I already got my calendar for 5.
Okay.
Is that a special call meeting though? Because that's our normal meeting day.
It would be a special call meeting.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. So we're doing it at 5 or 6?
You tell me. Your motion. They want to do, staff wants to do it at 6.
I'd like 5. I mean, I have a
Are you
conflict
saying-
at 6, but I could skip if I have to.
Ms. Tucker, any particular reason why 6 instead of 5?
There was the idea that 6 might be more convenient for board members who work until 5, as it isn't a regularly scheduled meeting day because it's March instead of April, but either time is fine with staff, whatever.
Can we split the gap?
Sure.
5:30?
Yeah.
I'll modify the motion,
Yeah.
reflect 5:30 instead of 5.
There's a motion for 5:30, March 8th.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Borum. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 2.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Are we going to discuss the letter that was sent by DPI now, or
Say it one more time.
are we going to address the letter that was sent by DPI now or later? Like, would that be in March or,
We'll do it at the, we'll do it at the end.
okay.
Moving on to discussion and direction for the status of the home improvement HIP program.
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is Jonathan Griffith. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. On August 12th, 2019, the CRA suspended all programs but the recruitment grant program. At the last CRA meeting, Commissioner Rawls requested this item be placed on the agenda for discussion. We did distribute a memorandum. I believe Ms. Krantz can put it up on the screen. There are a couple items that we would like to bring to your attention if the board does desire to revisit opening this program. Ms. Krantz, do you have that up?
Yes, sir. I'll flip over.
Okay, thank you. So to keep this simple, we believe that there are some primary goals when it comes to these incentive programs, and we believe that there is a place to have these programs in our redevelopment toolbox. Those goals are simply the removal of slum and blight, the leveraging of private investment, and the preservation and enhancement of the tax base. So again, if the board, and again, we're going to turn this over to you for discussion, and staff is here to answer any questions that you may have. But if the board desires to open this program up or revisit all the programs, there are 3 suggestions that we would like to put on record. Number 1 is to revise the program to a 50-50 cost share, revise it to a reimbursement grant where it would be administered by the grantee. The grantee is the recipient of the funds or the property owner versus the city/CRA administering their project for them. And revise the program criteria to incentivize true redevelopment rather than encouraging deferred maintenance. I hope this kind of brings to light some of the issues that we've experienced in administering the program. And we're here to answer any questions.
Any questions?
What is it? What? Can
Make sure your mic's on.
what is the actual impact of having the grant administered? What is the actual impact of having the grant administered by the individual as opposed to the CRA?
So it's really just the ease of getting the funds distributed. There seems to be some complications that come out of the CRA administering the funds. When the CRA is expending the funds directly to the contractor, we have to adhere strictly to our procurement policy, which requires 3 quotes over $5,000 and a public bid over $25,000. It also just adds another layer of communication that can lead to problems. And we've just seen some issues in being able to deliver projects that satisfy the grantee, and we believe that can be resolved by letting the grantee administer, their own grant.
So that doesn't mean that the CRA loses any opportunity for oversight to ensure any expenditures of fund, that we still have a way of ensuring it's actually expended for what we expect it to be expended for?
Yes, ma'am. For example, this would be more in line with how the city and CRA administer grants that they receive from state and federal agencies. So the expenditures would have to be in line with the approved scope of work. And the CRA could even place an added layer of review where you still had the applicant solicit 2 quotes if you wanted to make sure it was an efficient use of funds. Does that address your question?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're revising the 50/50 cost share. What is the cost share right now currently? Well, prior to the suspension.
Okay, so the current cost share, Commissioner Jones, is up to $10,000 is 100% grant reimbursable with no match. After $10,000, they can receive another $5,000 in grants if they match it dollar for dollar. So an applicant could get a $15,000 grant if they contributed $5,000 towards a $20,000 project.
That would be 25%.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ross.
I support staff's recommendation for several reasons. Least of all that you get some buy-in from the homeowner, and it's one of those particular situations where you've got folks that are coming into the community that are buying houses that are typically antique houses, and you know what you're buying into. You're buying a house that is going to be high cost to maintain, high cost to, for your monthly overhead. But for us to be able to leverage that capital makes our tax dollars go twice as far as well. So, if we put $50,000 on the street, we get $100,000 worth of remodeling, rebuilding, and then it addresses the blight and some of the other slum areas that we're dealing with. So I personally think it's a great idea. As a fiscal conservative individual, I really believe that personal accountability is extremely important. And this is just a way for us to be able to help the homeowners out and say, look, you put up half the money, we put up half the money. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but part of the pain that's alleviated by them being the grantee is the city or the CRA is not in playing middleman when somebody's paint job goes south and they're not happy with the end product. And I see Mr. Holmes shaking his head yes. And this has happened in the past on more than one occasion. So I think it's terrific. It takes government out of the way. It puts the individual in there, and then they also have it's their money at work, so they're going to manage their project a little bit better than if it was just all given over to them 100%. So that's it.
Any other comments from the agency?
Yeah, well, I had to come in. I mean, I certainly appreciate that. I really am an advocate for that 50/50 cost share. But it's is it 10,000 max, or is it what's the max that the city or the CRA would be out of, depending on the total cost of the project?
Commissioner, we haven't proposed a new maximum grant amount. We kind of thought that if the board wanted to move forward with opening it back up in a revision, that would be one of the provisions that we would need to have further discussion on. And I think you'd need to probably work backwards and see how much money you have to utilize this year, and ideally what you have next year, and how many projects that you would like to see get done.
Yes, I mean, I think we certainly have to figure out about the maximum that would come out. So we appreciate that. Thanks.
We're gonna move to public comment. I'm gonna let Mr. Russo interject at this time.
I field a lot of questions as the president of the South Historic Neighborhood Association. I field a lot of questions from the folks living over there about the HIP program being reinstated and if it was going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that the community is very interested in knowing what's happening. Right. So whatever you guys decide to do is going to be okay. I think Rufus and Jeff have made a very interesting point about leveraging funds. The maximum, basically, if you shift over from 25% basically to 50% in order to leverage funds, you're really going to have to put a cap on the max. Otherwise, we're not going to be getting anywhere if our goal is to leverage funds and spread them around as much as possible. So just keep that in mind. That's the first thing that jumped out at me. I think that the program needs to be seriously looked at in regards to contractors. we've had some Mickey Mouse contractors going over there and doing some Mickey Mouse work. And so I spoke with Ms. Tucker about this, and there didn't seem to be any criteria with which to review these contractors and to take them off of the approved list. So I think that would be an important topic to review as we go forward. So I'm sure to have other questions as this gets developed, as these ideas get thrown around. So I'll just take my leave. Let you guys continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Parker, you got something? I saw the wheels turning. I'll let you fill your card out later. It's right over Chief Shaw's head.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I could, following up on a point that Commissioner Rawls made, I think we'd like to get the city completely out of the contractor selection process. So obviously it's not my decision to make, but by us coming up with an approved list, we are in a sense, we're narrowing the choices that the grant recipient can make. And then when things go bad, if things go bad, we are again subject to some criticism for tacitly recommending a limited number of contractors to do the job. So the point from the city's perspective, staff's perspective, is we'd like to be out of the contractor
Business.
client or contractor customer equation. The work has to be up to code. They pick who they want to. They make their own contract with that contractor, eliminating confusion as to who the contract is actually with. And that confusion has occurred in the past. And then if the job is done and it's done in accord with the terms of your grant, then they get their reimbursement. And if they have a problem with the contractor or the quality of the work, it's between the grant recipient and the contractor, and the city's not in the middle of that mix. That's our request and suggestion. And we do have experience that causes us to go that route.
To comment to Don's just a point about the contractors, I think that's workable. If the individual is allowed to choose whichever contractor they want, and it's not a low bid issue, then I think what Don's talking about will work very effectively.
The biggest issue is that the biggest issue that eliminates liability for the city as it relates to what's in place, and it still gives some control to the resident as to who they want to do the work, as long as they meet certain criteria.
Yeah, I think that'd go a long way to solve some issues.
What's been proposed is a reimbursement. So if you decide you wanted to get your front steps replaced or your front porch, then you would be approved for the grant. You would pay the contractor. If you put in the terms of your contract with them that they get paid upon payment, so you give them half the money, they get the other half when the CRA funds. The CRA is not going to fund until, number one, the work has been approved by the building official. Number two, that you've said that you're satisfied with it, and that can be a provision or a clause in the documentation from the CRA that says that once you make the request for that payment, you're claiming that you're satisfied, and that takes the government out of the way, and the homeowner is responsible for the outcomes of their own.
And you agree to meet all the criteria of the grant itself.
Yeah, I think that's a workable idea. I think it solves a number of issues, because we've had contractors going over there, get the low bid, and you really get the distinct impression that they know each other, and I don't want to accuse anyone, but it certainly looks like there's a collusion of some sort to max their profit from the program. So,
yeah, okay. Appreciate it. Mr. Parker.
Tim Parker, 528 Kirby Street, if you need that for the record. I don't really have a problem with the 50-50 split. That's workable. There are people who have purchased homes in the South Historic District knowing this program was actually in place, and they purchased them prior to August the 12th when the program was suspended. So they've been waiting for over a year because they've lived there for a year and established homesteads. So they've been waiting over a year for this program to get kicked back in. So I think it's very important that it does. And you're going to hear, a case a little bit later on that where it's been affected, or they've been affected and they could have utilized these funds many, many months ago. So I think it's important to get it back on track. And probably part of that could be done in the March 8th meeting as well, but it'd be great if it could move forward from here. So, you know, what's the, I guess, the definition of true redevelopment rather than encouraging deferred maintenance? A lot of folks purchase these homes knowing this program is in place. And for example, one of the things that they know is in place is the home's going to need to be painted, or it's going to need a roof, okay, or perhaps windows. Where do you draw the line on deferred maintenance? You know, my windows are kind of rotted. I'm going to live here for a year. I can live with them, but I'm going to have to get them replaced. Is that maintenance or is that redevelopment? I have a roof that needs to be replaced. You know, I'm willing to put up the money. Is that deferred maintenance or is that redevelopment? You know, eliminating blight, peeling paint is probably one of the worst, you know, things as far as blight goes in a neighborhood. And to say that you're not going to encourage someone's home getting painted really is not going to help overall in the blight aspect of the districts. So that's probably one of the main things that is needed in this particular grant. So just a couple of observations. I know we don't really have a whole lot written down and written out. You know, preservation and enhancement of tax base. That's a pretty tough thing to say, that everything you do is going to enhance your tax base. Okay, my house is not painted, I paint it. How much does that enhance the tax base? You know, I had windows, now I have new windows, maybe some. Okay, real hard to measure those sort of things. But I think it's a good step in the right direction. And this program's been dormant for way too long. And I really am looking forward to it getting back in place. I think it's very, very important for the district.
Well, I think one of the big things, and I think it's something that we've talked to you about as well, as when you spent close to $1 million in the residential, in housing improvement, and you're not seeing necessarily anything that triggers reassessments of property values and things of that nature, while and you got to admit, if you go through the neighborhood, there are some folks who've taken advantage of it as deferred maintenance. And that's just the reality of what it is. There are people who've gotten multiple loans and done some of the other things, multiple grants. But I think at the same time, if you purchase a house that's in disrepair or vacant, then there's an expectation that you got to spend some money on that property. This program is a bonus. It's not. It's kind of like it's bonus cash. So at the end of the day, if it's not available, then you still got to do what a homeowner would do. And I think our biggest thing is to make sure that there are some incentives that are there. But if you look around the community, most of the vacant properties are gone. What we're finding now is homeowners who basically, for whatever reasons, been unable to do certain things. Some of those are for unforeseen circumstances, but in a lot of situations, it's just folks who just haven't maintained their properties in the proper way. And I think we don't want to get into the business of saying, hey, don't worry about it, don't paint your house. Don't paint your house now. Wait till you can get, until your number comes up in the process so that you can get it painted with free money, or you can save half of the money. We want to encourage folks to be proactive in what they're doing. And at the same time, we want to be able to have mechanisms in place which will inspire folks to come in and purchase properties that they wouldn't normally purchase. But I don't think at the end of the day, that $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000 that comes from the HIP program or even residential rehab is going to be a catalyst for many folks who come in and look at the beauty of these houses. I think more than anything else, it's monopoly money, and bonus money is going to be out there, and people are going to take advantage of it. And the reality of it is that money doesn't come back in the way of tax dollars. It comes back from blight removal or from some other ways that you can't measure on a tax roll or even measure in a budget. But I think we have to make sure we put rules in place so that we can stretch it to as many citizens as we can. And I think that's really ultimately one of our goals.
Yeah, and it's very hard to quantify these sort of things. I did a report for the city as the property appraiser, and the percentage increase in the South Historic District because, well, in part because of this program being in place, was greater than any other, than the overall tax increase percentage-wise in the city. Okay, so I think the program has worked in that particular district. So I think it's good for it to be in place, and hope y'all will just move forward with it. And it's a very important project. And there are people that have purchased homes in there. There's people that with different types of incentives would not have rehabbed the home in that particular area had those incentives not been in place. So it just would not have made sense unless you were doing a majority of the work yourself, which they were able to do.
But the percentage increase in value by no ways touched the tip of the iceberg on the over $800,000 invested. So we understand that there's an offset based upon what's put in place. But we want to see good works. We want to see the positive investments. So you got new streets, you got all the new infrastructure. We want to see beautiful homes, and we want to see neighborhoods that are clean and without blight or crime. And so we understand that the two have to work in concert.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, or I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, if there, let's just say between now and September, we take the money that's not been utilized and the excess money that we can put in, and there's $100,000 or $50,000 that can be put in and $100,000 that can be spent total with leverage. Somebody runs out and they get their house painted in a I guess we'd have a prescriptive period of time, right? And in that period of time, they get their house painted. Can they then come back retroactively and apply for it and say, in this period of time that you're running this program, I got my house painted and I spent $8,000 and we would reimburse them half of that? Or
No, I think where we are, the first problem that we have right now is that we didn't budget anything for this program for this fiscal year. And so we'll be basically moving line items around to, for example, landscaping or whatever line item there is in order to do it. So I don't think this fiscal year we're going to find ourselves budgeting on our programs.
I'm thinking we're going to start October 1st.
So let's just say we find ourselves in that situation next year. The reality of it is that the application process if we approve it now, the application process is going to start before the beginning of the fiscal year, and then the allocations will come after that. And so if my thought process would be that if they're within the application period and they make application and they're approved and they're in this waiting panel for allocation, that goes from there. Mr. Russo, you got to slow down. Have a seat. And so we're going to go from there. And so that's where we'd be. But the parameters of what we're doing, we can work out details.
Well, what you said, it's kind of interesting to me because it's almost like I could picture people, if somebody wants to go out and they say, you know what, I know this is coming up. I'm going to spend $2,000 re-landscaping my yard and beautifying it, putting up a fence or something. Then they can go out there, they can spend the money knowing they can come in. And if we say this is how much money we have, first come, first serve, then it would encourage people to get out there and get their monies put to work and then come in and make the request, or make an application and take your risk, because if, you could be at the back of the line when you get approved and you're in next year's.
Next year, the year after, depends on how much money we have. Yeah, ultimately. Any comments from the commission?
Yeah. Well, I can see another issue possibly arising from that as well. For instance, somebody want to do a repainting of the house or whatever, and depending on the amount of the overall cost of paint a house, what if it's exaggerated quite a bit in terms of how much money they're spending? And then they're going to expect the other portion to come from the city.
Well, if we have maximum grants.
Right. What I'm saying is, just say for instance, if depending on the type of paint, the amount of paint, all of those things come into play in terms of the quality of the paint and the amount. So I think we're going to have to establish some parameters around that as well.
So am I understanding you correctly? Like if they're painting maximum award $5,000 for a $10,000 paint job, landscaping, $5,000, $2,500 match or something like that, or in each category?
Well, I think we're going to have to look at it from a categorical standpoint and among other things, because just say, for instance, like you were saying, if somebody go out and they do their own reaching out to contractors and saying, okay, I'm going to get this contractor to come in and do this work. they get the work done, knowing that they're gonna possibly be approved for the money, and it come in $5,000, $10,000 more than what if it was administered through the city. The CRA, you know, it had the city involved and say, okay, well,
That would be a first.
yeah, I'm just saying, here's the,
I think that's a legitimate point.
Right.
I mean, basically, if you have-
Go ahead and yell from the back of the room. That's good. Go ahead. You can free reign. It's like football game.
I think Rufus is bringing up a very good point, because I mean, we want to have an effective, efficient efficacy on this program, right? So what Rufus is bringing up is the idea that there could be a collusion between the owner and the contractor that escalate the value of the project, and then they're getting a kickback.
well,
Without the kickback, it doesn't work, because it's dollar for dollar, right? That's what we're thinking about, dollar for dollar. But if they get a kickback, yeah, then they're going to be artificially raising the cost of the project and therefore getting more funds out of the program.
Yeah, but I would, here's where I would disagree. If they cut a check for $7,000 and they're gonna have to pay 100% out of pocket, it wouldn't benefit them to escalate that price to themselves to get half of it back.
Say that one more
This is
time.
what we're talking about. We're talking about a program, unless I'm wrong, where somebody funds the whole project out of pocket. We're not playing intermediary. Hey, sure.
Hey, we hope you feel better. Thanks for showing.
So we're not gonna be between the builder or the contractor and the customer. They hire somebody, they pay somebody, they get the job they want done, then they get reimbursed.
All right, so we're way in the weeds at this point.
Okay.
The reality of it is we've got a concept in place.
Okay.
It seems like there's to me, it seems like not much objection to the concept of where we are, and we can get more meat brought back at our next meeting. Go ahead, Ms.
The
Kim.
only thing I was going to say, long before you have the discussion you're having right now, somebody has to work to come up with a definition of redevelopment and deferred maintenance, so that you'd even know what actually fell into which category. Because some of the things you're talking about might not fall in any of these categories. So before you have that weedy issue conversation, we might want to wait.
A lot of the definitions are already in the residential rehab program and in the HIP program as it exists now.
I just have one.
You've got, this is your last one.
My last comment. All I know is that we are we are benefiting from those folks 40 years ago who set this program up. And we have to use it in a way that's going to benefit the next generation in front of us. We got to pass that forward. So I think that this revision of the CRA plan, it's only got 20 more years left. That's it. So we really need to clearly define what is our vision and then plan to manifest that vision in order to be as efficient as we can. Thank you.
That's your last comment for this particular item? No.
I'm ready to go home.
We know you're gonna be back. Anything else, Mr. Griffin?
No, sir.
Anything else from the agency? I think, so it seems to me that the concept has been, that the concept in whole is in favor of the commission. Commissioner Campbell, I see you're in Cyberland. You got anything for us? No, sir. Okay. So we've got, and so it seems as though the concept is there. I think it's just a matter of bringing it back to the board with some definitions and also just a little bit more teeth so that we can kind of work through it. And we're going to put a cap, we're going to present a cap as to where we are. It seems like presenting a cap, making sure that we clearly define deferred maintenance and some of the other terms are going to be critical for us as we move forward. And it looks like overall a great job and at least having a starting point for discussion so that we can move forward. And then also just making sure that we put in the language so that we have that, the preferred contractor list or the approved contractor list and what the criteria is would be good for us as we move forward. And most of that stuff, again, is already in some of the existing programs that we have in place. And so I think that will kind of get us to where we need to be. And then we can bring this back at our next meeting. Will we bring this, do you want to bring this back in March at the next meeting?
Mayor, if you're talking about doing this October 1, we're probably not going to bring it back at the special called meeting. We believe you're going to need that full amount of time to talk about the revised plan. So maybe, you know, the regular meeting just after that, if that's okay with the board.
Okay, that works with everybody. That works. So we just want to make sure we get it back in time so that we can, if we have to tweak it, we'll have it before we get into budgeting. That way we don't give Ms. Becker any heartaches over the next few weeks. So, okay. Thank you again for your work on this. And thanks to everyone for your input, because it's all valuable and it gets us to where we need to be. And it seems like this is one of those scary times where we all seem to be kind of on the same plane. So we're good. Let's move forward in the agenda at this time. Fiscal year 2020, 2021, our TIF budget amendment number 1. And it's going to be recommended to the commission for adoption. Ms. Becker, are you taking this one?
Hi, yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This is a routine budget amendment that you'll see. It is shoring up the year-end figures for fiscal year 20 and also rolling forward a project that was budgeted last fiscal year but needed to be expensed in this current fiscal year. The figures that you'll see listed have, or the majority of them have already been allocated to existing projects. So this is just like a routine update to make sure that the budget is amended. Thank you, Sunny, so I could see it.
It's on your share. It's on the share screen as well, if anybody wants to see it up top. So you want to roll through that right quick, just in case there are any questions.
Sure, yeah. Let's see. Okay, thank you. So the balance forward is actually going to be your year-end fiscal year 20 balance. You can see that a lot of those monies were allocated last fiscal year. However, they weren't spent due to project timing and that sort of thing. However, you'll see down at the bottom where it says contingency reserve, read it out, and that is what is expected to be at year-end, fiscal year end 21. If we spend everything that is budgeted. The downtown and the south have major projects going on right now that Ms. Tucker and Mr. Griffith can speak more to. However, those reserve dollars have been allocated to, I believe, stormwater and potentially St. John's Avenue match. I don't want to speak out of line, but I do know that those numbers will be reallocated out in the middle of fiscal year 21 or might be allocated whenever we start creating the new budget for 21-22. It's all about project timing.
Any questions on the existing projects? Do you need any additional information on existing projects that are out? If not, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the budget amendment that's brought forward.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the amendment number 1 for budget year 2021.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? There's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Becker. Moving forward.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving forward to request for emergency funding for repairs, 418 River Street.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Staff received a request from the homeowner at 418 River Street for $15,000 in emergency funding for repairs to their home. Included in this item, you'll see 2 estimates for the repairs. The most recent at about $88,000 and a letter of support from the South Historic Neighborhood Association and a statement from the Will Heights themselves.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
you should also have a memo from me. Sonny, I don't know if it's possible for you to put that up.
Yes, sir.
So basically, this is simply a memo trying to make sure we stay in touch with, that was a memo, I guess it's back off now, that we stay in touch with our plan and also with procedures that guarantee we have consistency in our approach. Right now, there is no program that is active which would normally be a source of funding for a request of this nature. Obviously, it's possible that you could activate a program and then consider the request, but there are problems associated with that from a perspective of fairness.
Hold on just one second. It's in the left side of your folder. So for those who don't have it, the memo. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Owen.
That's okay. So as I said, you do have programs that have been created which would theoretically be a source of funding for requests such as this. But none of those programs are active as of right now, haven't been active. They haven't been accepting applications and haven't been funding any requests. So to consider the request that's before you, I guess you could theoretically activate one of those programs, but you'd be doing that on a one-off basis. In other words, you'd be activating a program to consider a request and then theoretically granting it or not, which would have issues of fairness, I think, or would raise at least that question, since the program hadn't been available to others, and depending upon the funding and whether there's any money budgeted to that program, you might be limiting the ability of others in the future to apply for that program or for that type of funding. So what staff has done is basically suggested to you that perhaps you create another category of programs, an emergency repair program, and that you develop criteria as to how you would consider applications for emergency repairs. We have suggested some potential criteria for you. These aren't intended to be a take it or leave it type of guideline sheet. It's some things for you to think about with the request at hand. As I understand what was just said, $15,000 is being requested for an $88,000 repair, and the damage has been in place for quite a while. You may want to consider this and then consider implementing the program at your March 8th meeting, or I mean you can do what you choose. But the point being, right now, today, this second, there's not a program active from which you could fund the request that's before you. So given the nature of the request and the fact that it may be a legitimate one, we talked about the possibility of you creating an emergency repair program with some criteria. And if you don't like the ones that we've established, you can change them. But then you would have another vehicle to work with in considering emergency repairs, which might or might not fall under any of your other programs. So that's staff's position.
Any questions or comments on the position stated?
I got 1,000,001 flying around in my head right now, but least of all would be, I don't think this is one of those slippery slopes that you don't want to go down. I think this really needs to happen at some point. And I'm really surprised, to be honest with you, that there's no way in place. Part of the visioning sessions, when I sat through the one that they had at the Price Martin Center about a year and a half ago with Bill Shanahan, people were talking about the historic homes and the value they add to the community. So you've got a marketing aspect to Putnam or to Palatka, and it involves the historic districts. So and then you got a catastrophic event like this that's completely unforeseeable, and knowing that it's really hard to insure homes like this, you could end up with creating a situation where you have blight as a result of major storm damage, and somebody comes in and says, I need 15,000 out of 65,000. So I think if we don't come up with some sort of avenue to be able to fund projects like this, it's gonna create a problem. We're just discussing the North TIF, the South TIF, and the Central TIF, and the same thing could happen to a business. You could have somebody veer off the road with no insurance and no means to pay for damage, hit the front of a building, wipe out a building, and then the business owner, the building owner, is in a position to not be able to make the repairs, or business goes out of business, God forbid, as a result of that. So I think it's something that we definitely need to consider doing. And you know, I don't know that our backs aren't up against the wall right now, but obviously time is of the essence for the folks that are looking for this relief.
Mr. Russo, Mr. Russo, do not yell anymore from the audience, please. Like, I've been giving you a lot of latitude, and it's more than I've given in 6 years. Just please don't do that. Commissioner Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I hear you, Mr. Rawls. But at what point do insurance kick in? I mean, you know, as a homeowner, you have the responsibility, even a business owner, to have insurance. Right. So I would like to know that question. Where do insurance come in?
My personal experience having one of these type of houses, and for me, it's a one and done. I encourage everybody to try rehabbing an old house, but a lot of times you can't get insurance, or the insurance is so cost prohibitive that you can't afford it. And we're not talking, $4,000 or $5,000 a year. In some cases, you could be looking at $15,000 to $20,000, depending on the value of the house and the age of the house and the condition of it. So in some cases, you just cannot get coverage, and you have to go into the citizens pool, and they really don't want to touch these houses either.
Well, I know of instances where people have houses that valued a lot less than this, that need desperate help.
Right.
And we don't have programs to help those folks, as well as right now, we don't have an active program. So,
I'll take a hit for that as a county commissioner. We're working on the SHIP program right now, and we've been very derelict in those responsibilities in the past. So, but the SHIP program would not be able to apply to this, just by the nature of the houses themselves. I don't think that you're going to get very many people that would qualify for SHIP funding. I think as a community, we've got to have safeguards in place to be able to protect the antique houses that make up the South Side and the North Side historic districts, and then the buildings that we have in the Central TIF as well, because you've got a lot of real estate there whose value is not in the dirt, but in the building itself, because it was built in the late 1800s or the early 1900s, or it was an old store that was opened up way back when that is on the historic register. So we just have to be very careful on how we proceed. That's all I'm saying. I think we need to come up with something for the 3 TIF areas, but what it is, I don't know.
I think the other thing is, just as a point of information, this wouldn't qualify under SHIP just because there was no insurance. And right. So TIP, if you're going to get emergency repairs with TIP, through the SHIP program, you got to have insurance in place. I think that the second part, Commissioner, is the fact that when you're in a TIP district, when there's a CRA in place, you've got a plan that provides for the ability to have programming in place to do certain things that you wouldn't necessarily get done in a district that didn't have a CRA, fairly or unfairly, or however you want to view it. I think the thing is, the uniqueness of the district is what creates where we are based upon the plans that are in place. I wholeheartedly agree that there had to be mechanisms in place for the community as a whole, but in these districts, the existence of these programs have been identified, and you have a fund that's already identified that can give you additional options that you may not get in other areas. And so I think that's the piece of it that's unique in this. And that's where this kind of becomes a unique circumstance compared to, any other house, no different than housing improvement. Right. Those are the things that are unique to these particular districts that have been identified.
Right, I understand. Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. But what the city manager is telling us that we don't actually have an active plan right now, and this is, I guess, it's an emergency situation.
Correct.
I just wanted to put that out there, so I want to be on the record saying what I think.
And I also give you this point of information. So there's some other agencies that are out, Wealth Watchers, for example. They've acquired some funding for for city residents and to be able to do some additional repairs to communities that aren't necessarily in the CRA district to be able to help out. I've actually posed the question as to whether this would be a situation where they could actually help out with those repair funds as well. I won't know the answer to that question until well after this meeting. But I wholeheartedly agree with what Mr. Holmes said, which is we don't have the emergency repair program in place. There's an opportunity to bring that program here. There's also an opportunity for us to take the same existing program and place it in the budget, in our general budget as a part of the city commission as well. But I think this becomes a critical step for us when we have situations such as this or any other situation where we've at least got some format in place, which gets us to where we need to be. I think the reality of it is that Will Heights are in a situation where they need help. And if we've got the mechanisms in place, or we can open up those mechanisms, it's a unique situation. And we need to at least look at it and see if we can ignite the program, which will have some future impact to be able to do just that. Because more than anything else, we're a community that we want to be able to do things decently and in order, in a way that it doesn't create implicit biases or anything else, but to be able to help citizens wherever we can. I think that's what we're here for.
Well, I'm just thinking about they're requesting 15,000 and the total is 62, estimated at 62.
88.
88,000. Say 88,000.
Well, there's actually two different bids.
I
That's
see
what-
62.
Yeah, there's a 62 and an 88.
Yeah, okay. I didn't look at those. So you got two different quotes. Okay. I just saw them.
So your question is, if you receive the funding, where's the rest of the money come from?
Yeah, if they don't have the insurance, are they paying out of pocket or how? Okay. Okay.
Oh, well.
In that,
Ms. White, can you come?
yes, well, I think in those
Can
situations,
you come to the
like,
microphone?
yeah, I think in these type situations like that, I mean, I think it's prudent that we really take it into consideration to help individuals, especially if they're paying a pretty big amount, and the city and what we have and available in the TIF. It's a small drop in the bucket when I think about it, but I mean, that's just my comment. I would like to see where people have ability to have insurance to be able to pay for things like that, but they're coming out of their own pocket with that. And I think we have a program in place, but it's not active. Just want the agency to really look at it and give it some consideration.
We need to
Can I ask a
adopt
question?
criteria for an emergency before.
Yeah, before we get to that, Ms. White, can you just give your name and address for us?
Yes, my name is Sue Wilhite. My address is 418 River Street, Black, Florida.
Yes, ma'am. And I think the question more than anything is, and can you just put on the record? So if this agency was to provide any assistance, how would the remainder of the project be taken care of at that
We
point?
just recently acquired the money that we need to finish the job. It'll be complete. We'll have a new roof. One bid was lower because it didn't include the roof over the porch, the two roofs over the porch. And we decided to go with Riverside Builders.
So the 15,000 is the difference between what you have for the repairs and the remainder?
We're thinking that it's gonna end up being close to 100,000, and we have that much that we can put into it.
Okay. All right.
So I'm sorry.
So go ahead.
My question is, you have 100,000 that you're prepared to expend currently,
Yeah, we have to.
okay? Then,
Why didn't we have
no,
insurance?
no. Why would you need the additional 15,000? Are you anticipating being 115 and you're gonna cover 600 or?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be 115, 120,000. I'm thinking, we're thinking we're gonna have to put 100,000 into it. And we,
On top of the 15,000.
pardon me?
The 15 is on top of your 100.
Yeah.
So
That's what,
go ahead, Commissioner Jones.
Sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones, go ahead.
so Ms. Wilhite, I don't know if you've seen this, but this estimate from Riverside Builders,
Mm-hmm.
$88,900. Is this the last estimate you have received to get the work done?
Yes,
And that's including everything that you needed done, right?
yes. Well, that doesn't include the roof over the whole house. This includes the roof over the 2 porches,
I don't see that estimate in here.
that 89.
Repair, replace of existing roof decking.
Yeah,
It's in this.
just for the porch. And we need to replace the roof on the house, the entire house, because there's 2 of the branches that have gone through it. And we didn't have insurance because my husband was about to lose his foot. And we had to wait, and I had lost my eyesight. And you just had to weigh where you spent your money.
Yes, ma'am.
And we couldn't do it at that time. But we intend to finish the house, finish the project. It's going to look nice again. And then we'll be able to acquire insurance. And that's not including the 120,000.
I guess, Brian, I don't honestly think that we're in a position right now to be able to make an informed decision until we have more information, especially regarding the scope of work. Is the work underway currently?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, because it says excluding engineering by others. And that's
Well,
what
we
that-
did have an engineer come in, so that much of it has been done.
So that has a cost. And that's what I was saying is, if, maybe we could discuss at the special call meeting.
Well, that's the recommendation from staff. I think
Yeah.
the recommendation from staff is for us to bring this back at the special call meeting. I think it'll give us an opportunity to gain some additional information about the new funds that are available from the Wheel Heights as well, to see where we are, and also to be able to adopt a criteria for the program. So there'll be a program in place if the agency is so inclined.
So what do you need from us? So I know what to gather up.
What we'll do is ask you to get with the city manager after this meeting, and then he'll coordinate information exchanges so that when we come back here, we'll have information necessary to be able to make an informed decision at that point. And I think that'll probably be the best avenue for us to proceed with it that time.
For me personally, I would love to see a more complete scope of work, but also a more complete budget, because if it looks like we're looking at 15% or less of a total project, this is like what we just discussed, then this is really where our money is best spent. And this is an emergency, obviously, but at the end of the day, the product that you end up with will bring value to the neighbors and the surrounding community. So yeah,
We can't stay in the house right now because the
mold.
yeah.
So let's do that. Let's get you.
And you do have a copy of the plans
Okay.
that were drawn up by the engineer.
And so we know the submittals have to be put in place. So if we can just get you with Mr. Holmes
Mhm.
and.
Can I ask one more question real quick?
Go ahead.
Can this be one of those
This
projects
is your last
that we
one
don't
more
have to get
question?
in the middle of?
This is your last one more
This
question?
is I'm taking Mr. Vito's last question for him.
Uh-huh.
Is this one of those projects where we don't have to be in the middle of it as well?
Right.
Okay, I didn't,
From a reimbursement standpoint?
Yes.
We have, the beauty of establishing a program is you can establish the parameters
Yeah.
prior to. And we can we can expand the program to any other districts that we want it to be in by making a recommendation to the commission. And so that's the other piece of it. I think that covers all the concerns that are in place. So I'll entertain a motion to bring this back for the March 8th
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
So motion on the floor, second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion?
Question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to additional reports. South Tiff, you got anything, Mr. Russo? No more last questions or comments? Okay, good. Anything from the property appraiser since he's here? So, anything from the agency, Commissioner Rawls?
Really nothing right now. I'm really glad to see that we're going to be discussing the HIP program again. And I think getting more buy-in, one thing that I'm seeing from my private business is just this huge influx of people wanting to be in Putnam County, and the likes of which we haven't seen since 2006 and 7. So I'm really encouraged for the county and for the city in particular. And you know, like you and I have discussed, maybe some more cooperation between the city and the county, and getting some, I don't know how this affects the CRA, but you know, getting us to working together for all the citizens in both groups.
Great. Mr. Holmes, I missed you before I went to the agency. You got anything?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Campbell,
I have nothing.
Ms. Kemp, Commissioner Borum.
Well, I just want to thank the staff for the work that they put in looking at how they can better serve the community, as well as getting out of the business of administering these projects, and really returning value back to or giving more onus on the homeowners, whatever. So they've done a great job. We just got to continue to refine it. Just want to thank them for all the great work that they've done on this project.
Commissioner Jones. Hey, okay, and I'll close out. I'll say that we had a great weekend with Bassmaster Elite. It was truly the test run. It was one of the test runs for us to be able to reopen some programs within the community, to be able to start to have some new life come back to the community. While Mr. Russo is talking, so that he won't mention our Porch Fest, but Porch Fest becomes another example of opportunities for us to be able to create social distancing, things of that nature, so that we can have some life within the community. So I'm looking forward to folks coming to the CRA and to the city at this time, with opportunities as we continually increase our COVID testing, as well as our vaccines, and we begin to move the community forward. I think staff has done an excellent job on creating a reopening strategy, which will allow us to be able to bring small events back to the community as a whole with the proper safeguards, particularly outdoor events. And so I encourage our citizens to be diligent in their efforts and creative in ways in which we create these safeguards. And so that's what we're looking forward to. And I think this has been a pretty productive meeting as it relates to our thought processes in the heart of this community, to be able to help its people. And so again, thank you to everyone who participated in here. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.